Today I'm going to be talking to you about a collection of essays compiled into this one neat book called Naked by David Sedaris. The collection of essays centers around his life, his home life, his social life, his spiritual life, his personal life, and the particular essay that I'm going to be talking about is Plague of Tics. I don't know if you can see it from that far. So the story begins with quite a hilarious interaction between his first grade teacher and him. When the teacher asked if she might visit with my mother, I touched my nose 8 times to the surface of my desk. May I take that as a yes, she asked. According to her calculations, I had left my chair 28 times that day. You're up and down like a flea. I turned my back for 2 minutes, and there you are with your tongue pressed against the light switch. Maybe they do that where you come from, but here in my classroom, we don't leave our seats and lick things whenever we please. This is Miss Chestnut's light switch, and she likes to keep it dry. Would you like me to come over to your house and put my tongue on your light switches? Well, would you? What's interesting about this particular passage is that David Sedaris truly believes that his obsessive-compulsive and borderline Tourettic habits completely go unnoticed. More importantly, it's an example of adult figures who, instead of trying to find solutions to his obviously obsessive and Tourettic behaviors, chastise him. Adult figures like his mother, who mimics him as a tool of social acceptance, and his father, who obviously has no other way to help him but to resort to violence. By violence, I mean slamming the brakes on the car so that his son's nose hits the windshield. I mean, he told his son, or David Sedaris, not to do that, not to touch his nose against the windshield. But this kid has OCD and Tourettic behaviors. Like, come on. Direct quote right from the text, which proves that post-depression, we're gonna beat it out of you cold turkey, does not work every time. Here it is. Here it is. You touch your nose to that windshield one more time and I'll guarantee you'll wish you hadn't, he said, driving home from the grocery store. I wanted to touch my nose to the windshield. Who was it hurting? Why was it he could repeatedly worry his change and bite his lower lip without the threat of punishment? My mother smoked and Miss Chestnut massaged her waist 20-30 times a day. And here, I couldn't press my nose against the windshield of a car. I opened my eyes, defiant, but when he caught me moving toward my target, my father slammed on the brakes. You like that, don't you? He handed me a golf towel to wipe off the blood. Did you like the feel of that? I mean, really? Really? I mean, I guess that's you following through on your parenting skills, and that's great, but that's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. No. Wait, can we rewind for just a half a second? I wanted to touch my nose to the windshield. Who was it hurting? Why was it he could repeatedly worry his change and bite his lower lip without the threat of punishment? My mother smoked and Miss Chestnut massaged her waist 20-30 times a day. And here, I couldn't press my nose against the windshield of a car. Terribly cropped. My point in replaying that last bit was to restate those few lines that I think were very important to the rest of the story. In just 5 to 6.5 lines, he manages to sum up and question what normalcy really is. And I think that's what this whole entire story is about. Normalcy and sort of the quest to find normalcy, if you will. Whoa, that's quite interesting. Yeah, so there's that. And we don't really get so much of a description of his high school life and secondary sort of education as much as we do his younger years, but I think the next part of the story deserves some merit. This is the first time that he encounters a roommate, which is something that he's never had in his life, actually, ever. A beautifully worded quote by David Sedaris himself. I could practice... Oh, whoa. Started too early. I'd always had my own bedroom, a meticulously clean and well-ordered place where I could practice my habits in private. Speaks to not only his Tourettic behaviors, but his obsessive-compulsive behaviors. And now I would have a roommate, some complete stranger, spoiling my routine with his God-given right to exist. The idea was mortifying, and I arrived at the university in full tilt. So now he has this breach of privacy that he somehow has to accommodate for. He's never had a roommate, and he was able to keep his habits private, but now they're really public. So what does he do? He tries to adjust. And in his effort to try and adjust to this idea of normalcy that has been put on him by the adult figures, he picks up smoking. I'm unsure of the scientific aspects, but for some reason, my nervous habits faded about the same time I took up with cigarettes. Maybe it was a coincidental, or perhaps the tics retreated in the face of an adversary that, despite its health risks, is much more socially acceptable than crying out in tiny voices. Right there. It's the money phrase. Socially acceptable. Were I not smoking, I'd probably be on some sort of medication that would cost the same amount of money but deny me the accoutrements. The lighters I can thoughtlessly open and close, the ashtrays that provide me with a legitimate reason to leave my chair, and the cigarettes that calm me down while giving me something to do with my hands and mouth. It's as if I had been born to smoke. Okay. And until I realized that my limbs were left to search for some alternative. Everything's fine as long as I know there's a cigarette in my immediate future. The people who ask me not to smoke in their cars have no idea what they're in for. No idea what they're in for because they don't know its history like we do, the readers. So, there. So there you have it. David Sedaris, Naked, novel of non-fiction. It's a very good read, and I recommend it to anyone who is interested in reading, and even if you're not, it's a very nice, satirical, and truly intellectual take on such a crazy, wacky story of somebody's life, and I really enjoyed it. I really did. So, yeah.